As many countries around the world look towards emerging, I've been talking to art critic Tabish Khan, as well as you guys, about our inner voices and whether they have got rather loud during this time of self-isolation. My name is Nicola Anthony and I'm a sculptor at home during the lockdown. Without my metalworking equipment and my art studio, I am doing much less of this and much more small work like this. In my search for creative ways to problem solve during this time, I decided to share with you my learnings and my mistakes, along with words from my own creative mentors and coaches, who are helping me so much right now, and of course, my two newly promoted studio helpers. This week, I have to tell you that things have been a little bit tough. I have been hearing voices in my head. Many of us have that secret inner critic who we have to ignore. As a professional artist over the last 15 years, I have got to recognise that voice and have learned how to shake it off. But this week, I had the news that a month-long art residency has been cancelled. And simultaneously our lockdown here in Ireland has been extended. Even though it was anticipated, these things still feel like a blow. Many of you who I've been speaking to from all kinds of industries and backgrounds have been experiencing similar, either cancellations or changes in plan, and it can be disheartening. In the arts industry, where things can be subject to change and we often have to find workarounds, what have we learned about dealing with new situations which might lie ahead? There were many occasions when I sought help with critical thoughts in the past, and especially when I took the leap about 10 years ago to be a full-time professional artist, and I found that voice got really amplified. I had to learn how to combat this, and most importantly, how to realise that it's actually there, rather than allowing it to keep going round and round in my subconscious. Have you experienced anything similar? Many people I've heard from since the last videos have actually admitted a lack of productivity from their home office. But together we've also had some lovely chats about being kind to yourself and acknowledging the massive amount of emotional energy and extra tasks that we are all having to take on right now. All these discussions did make me realise that many people out there may have suddenly become more exposed to their inner critical voice during this time. I would love to hear what works for others, and I have been asking my networks as well. Those who have overcome it have discovered that a really valuable skill is that of not judging yourself or others. Whether you have failed at learning a new language, you never got past the TV binge watching, you couldn't find the motivation to get off the couch and to carry out lockdown how you had imagined, or have overindulged in guilty pleasures, let's all forgive ourselves right now. And I would like to say, cheers to that. Meanwhile, I have been chatting to Tabish Khan. He is an art critic who is sharing a lot of amazing tips on which theatres and galleries are best to visit virtually right now. As someone who critiques as his profession, Tabish told me how that could affect his own inner critic, and he kindly shared his top tips for daily lockdown life. So, it's over to you, Tabish.
Hello, my name is Tabish Khan. I'm an art critic, writer and speaker, and I want to talk to you about how I'm staying positive and productive during these surreal times we find ourselves in. It's been a bit strange for me in that I'm not financially impacted too severely by this crisis, which I appreciate makes me very fortunate. But I have found it strange that there are no external deadlines pressing on me, which is what I'm used to. So I'm having to find ways to create my own deadlines. One thing that I do that helps is to set little goals for every day, sort of, start this article, finish this article, or even something as minor as doing a bit of admin for the day. That way, when I get to the end of the day, I feel like it's been a productive day, that I've delivered something, even if it is something small. And sometimes I don't manage to achieve it. I spend far too much of the day watching TV, or maybe not doing as much work as I should have. And it's important to not be too hard on yourself, because after all, everyone's worst critic is their inner critic. And as an art critic myself, you can imagine how harsh my own inner critic is. Another thing that I've found is that it's an opportunity for me to catch up with lots of people. I know this is something that probably all of you have, which is that list of people that you say, right, we should go have a coffee sometime. And that never materialises because all of our lives are far too busy. I imagine my list is probably about 10 pages long, so I'm making the most of that opportunity to stay in touch with people. So those are essentially my 3 tips on how I'm getting by in these difficult times. So setting little goals, keeping in touch with people, and not being too hard on yourself. That's what's been working for me, and I hope that you find those helpful, and I hope that you remain positive and productive over the coming weeks and days.
Brilliant tips there, thank you so much. Finally, I wanted to share a quote from a TED Talk interview with psychologist Rick Hanson. He says that we all have 2 different voices inside of us, one which is nurturing and one which is critical, one which lifts us up and one which weighs us down. Both of these voices have a role to play, and our inner nurturer brings self-compassion and also encouragement, while the inner critic can help you to recognise where you've gone wrong and what you need to do to set those things right. He goes on to point out how the inner critic can start to become the dominant voice, and this can turn into a mantra of scolding and fault finding. There are good ways to reset this balance by restraining the critic and strengthening the nurturer inside yourself. Thank you so much for listening today to episode 3 of this series, and I hope that this video has resonated with some of you out there and has even connected with those of you who didn't realise this was going on but now recognise that in yourselves. Let's hope it helps, and let's all continue to argue against our inner critics and truly intend to win.